Hi guys, it is Tamika L. Sims here, and it's time for this week's Dope Media Report. So, we know that 2020 was a big year for the cannabis industry. We saw a lot of states legalize, more states legalized during the November election, this year's November election than ever before. We saw a number of decriminalization reform bills, as well as the passing of the historic MORE Act that also happened after the election. So, just as 2020 was a big year for cannabis, we expect 2021 to be no different. And so we will begin this week's Dope Media Report on the West Coast in the state of Washington. Washington has created a social equity task force that has been charged with censoring anti-Black racism. And so what's going to happen is that this is actually going to establish the creation of a social equity program, whose responsibility is to begin an 8-year evaluation of the cannabis industry in Washington state. So we expect to see a number of social justice as well as social equity programs being created that establishes not only precedent but also opportunity for Black and brown entrepreneurs and individuals who have an interest in the cannabis industry to be able to have equal access to do so. We also expect to see what's going to come out of the evaluation, the assessments, as well as the outcomes that we can expect to see from the state of Washington. And so, as always, we'll keep you posted right here on CannaBiscuits TV. And hey, you may be wondering, how can I advance cannabis reform in my state, whether it is a legalized state or not? And here's one thing that we're going to encourage you to do, and that is to normalize cannabis conversations. Sometimes it's just that simple, folks. Sometimes it's just as simple as having a conversation or working the plant into your everyday conversation, talking about it, removing the stigma, and creating an environment as well as opportunity for education, awareness, and understanding. Right? So if you're thinking about how you can do your part, you don't have to be a lobbyist. You don't have to be a politician. You don't have to be someone that's working in the industry. You can just be an average, ordinary individual who has an interest. So start working cannabis into some of your conversations. And finally, the state of Massachusetts brings in a record $14.9 million in tax revenue in recreational marijuana. Now, taxes were collected for the first time in 2020. And while that is a lot of money and it is great revenue going into the state of Massachusetts, users or individuals that reside in that state don't know what will happen next. So as always, we're going to keep you posted as more information is going to come out as far as how Massachusetts is planning to stimulate their economy with the additional tax revenue that the recreational marijuana has brought in. And that is all for this week's Dope Media Report. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, please don't forget to follow CannaBiscuits on the social media at Canna_biscuits, as well as connecting with us on our blog, CannaBiscuits.com, which is where we cover these stories and a lot more news, business, politics, as well as industry trends and some lifestyle content for you recreational users out there. So thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time for the Dope Media Report.